Annie Leibovitz, born on October 2nd, 1949 in Waterbury, Connecticut. She was one of 6 children born to Sam, an Air Force lieutenant, and Marilyn Leibovitz, a modern dance instructor, in 1967. Leibovitz enrolled at the San Francisco Art Institute, where, initially studying painting, she developed a love for photography. After some years abroad, Leibovitz returned to the U.S. and applied for a job with the startup rock music magazine Rolling Stone in 1970. Impressed with Leibovitz's portfolio, which included an image of counterculture icon Allen Ginsberg, editor Jan Winter offered her a job as staff photographer. In 1983, Leibovitz began working for the entertainment magazine Vanity Fair. Leibovitz's images have been showcased in several books and major exhibitions around the world. Within 2 years, the 23-year-old Leibovitz was promoted to chief photographer, a title she would hold for the next decade. Her position with the magazine afforded her the opportunity to accompany the Rolling Stones band on their 1975 tour, though she lost herself from the experience and ended up grappling with a crippling drug addiction. While with the Rolling Stones, Leibovitz developed her trademark technique, which involved the use of bold primary colors and surprising poses, as seen in the 1979 Bette Midler cover inspired by the rock music from the film The Rose, credited with making many of the Rolling Stones' collectible cover items. In 1983, Leibovitz left Rolling Stone and began working for Vanity Fair. With a wider array of subjects, Leibovitz's photographs for the magazine ranged from presidents to literary icons to teen heartthrobs. Leibovitz's shoots also became known for over-the-top budgets that would later be at the center of major financial challenges, such as Demi Moore in her very pregnant and very nude photo, Whoopi Goldberg, who is half submerged in a bathtub of milk, Sylvester Stallone, who's appearing in a pose inspired by Rodin's The Thinker, Caitlyn Jenner in a corset after having publicly revered herself as a woman. Leibovitz is known for her ability to make her sitters become physically involved in her work. Most recently and most famously is Keith Haring. He is her most famous portrait. He painted himself like a canvas for the photo. During the 1980s, Leibovitz also started to work for a number of high-profile advertising campaigns. One of her most notable projects was for American Express, for which her portraits of celebrity cardholders earned her a 1989 Silo Award. In 1991, Leibovitz was the first woman to be honored with her collection of more than 200 photographs in an exhibit at the National Portrait Gallery in Washington, D.C. Later that year, a book was published to accompany the show titled Photographs, Annie Leibovitz, 1970 to 1990. In 1996, Leibovitz worked as the official photographer of the Summer Olympics in Atlanta, Georgia. A compilation of her black and white portraits of American athletes, including Carl Lewis and Michael Johnson, were published in the Olympic Book of Portraits. In 2003, Leibovitz published the book American Music, with an emphasis on important figures in the realm of blues, country, folk, hip-hop, and jazz. Then, in 2006, the Brooklyn Museum of Art presented the retrospective Annie Leibovitz, A Photographer's Life, 1990 to 2005, with a related book published as well. This was later followed by Pilgrimage, a touring exhibition that debuted in Washington, D.C. in 2012 and focused on items associated with famous figures like Abraham Lincoln and Marilyn Anderson. As busy as ever, Leibovitz currently continues to be a high-profile and high-demanded photographer working on many high-profile accounts.
Annie Leibovitz uses contrasting and bold colors, similar hues, iconic poses, and interesting takes on stories to make her photographs powerful. In 1987, she photographed different celebrities for an international campaign for an American Express to use on their charge cards. The image is almost only 2 different color tones, orange and black, creating a great contrast between the 2 different sides of the sand and the person with the black hair blowing in the wind. She photographed John Lennon a few hours before his death on December 8, 1980. The image was only one from the session. The image was the recreation of the Double Factory 1980 album cover. The image uses Yoko Ono's hair and clothing as the bold color choice, while Lennon's skin tone almost matches the ground. The image of Demi Moore is from 1991. She was 7 months pregnant. and it was not what the magazine editors wanted. They wanted a close-up of Moore's face to hide her belly. This image became the most talked about image cover in history. The image of Whoopi Goldberg was inspired by a joke Whoopi Goldberg told when as part of a set, using Clorox to attempt to bleach her skin. The milk in the bathtub was used because it reflects a true opaque white while photographed. The pose was not intended. Goldberg slipped while she was getting into the tub, and the image was the result. Leibovitz's most famous image is of Keith Haring, who was painted the same black and white design as the set. The image only consisted of 2 colors, causing one to actually have to look at the image to fully understand that someone is standing on top of a coffee table. The image of Michael Jackson was taken in 1989, during the height of his career. He was posed in one of his most famous dance moves. She photographed the cast of Star Wars, The Force Awakens, and The Last Jedi for Vanity Fair covers. The image of The Force Awakens features the characters in the cockpit of the Millennium Falcon, with bright multi-lit lighting, while the Last Jedi images are in a studio with little contrast between the characters in the background, with dramatic lighting. In 2007, she was hired to photograph celebrities as various Disney roles for Walt Disney Parks and Resorts' Year of a Million Dreams campaign. The images are highly photoshopped from the originals. The image in the bottom right is how one of the originals' image looked while being photographed. The images became dreamy and had a magical appeal to them. In 2015, the image of Caitlyn Jenner became the cover of Vanity Fair. This was Jenner's first public appearance since her gender change. The image of Miley was intended to be an artistic, simple, classic portrait, but the public took it as a manipulated 15-year-old girl who was used to sell magazines. The image shows a young girl who looks to be topless, wrapped in a bedsheet covering only the front of her body.
So here I have our image compared to Leibovitz. I would say we didn't make it look exactly as we would have liked, but when it comes to the colors, the framing, and the composition, it wasn't too far off. They're both on the right side of the photo. The light is coming from the left side, but I would say her light is definitely higher than the one we used, giving it more of an angelic feel and whimsical appearance. Also, where we angled the camera is slightly off, ours being a little below our subject instead of directly on, giving Leibovitz a lot more of a dramatic look. I think you could tell where we got our inspiration from in our image, but minor details make a difference when it comes to getting that great shot like hers. From the child eyes to her bright blonde hair and the stunning look, her image pops and stands out.
After closely examining multiple pieces of Annie Leibovitz's work, we were able to make certain assumptions as to how she tries to make her art unique to her individual style with the use of specific ideas and perspectives. Many of the photographs she has captured use a close-up shot focusing the frame primarily on the subject's face and eyes. By repeatedly using this technique, distinguishing Leibovitz's artwork from other artists has become much easier and more straightforward, allowing us to dedicate more time concentrating on the smaller details she incorporates within each of her shots. On the technical aspect, the element of lighting plays a major role in highlighting more or less of the subject's facial features. Based on the position of where the source of light is coming from, determines if Leibovitz decides to reveal more or less of the subject and how the mood or tone of the portrait will be conveyed. Through this process, the shadow component becomes much more noticeable, adding to the expressive nature of the shot. Leibovitz uses the same techniques in most of her work, serious close-ups with a focus on the straight look given by the subject. This practice is something she has mastered and made her personal craft, creating her own individual category. In ethical terms, she has consistently applied the same ideas throughout her artwork, establishing a decree of guidelines that must be followed in order to match her previous projects. This subsidiary principle to the ethical perspective of visual analysis is known as categorical imperative. Ultimately, the manner in which she constructs her artwork, along with the feelings she tries to provoke through her techniques, make her final pieces even more impactful, being that she is truly meaning to shape the viewer's personal reactions to the issues portrayed through the medium.